how do you channel their energy? So if someone comes to you and they're trying to sort of, I mean, can I use French and say be a shithead? It's like, hey, like they obviously have capabilities that are really valuable to you. And they are bringing up things like Zoom. If those things hadn't happened to Zoom at, you know what, honestly, this Zoom bombing thing, like it didn't really require a lot of incidents for Zoom to now have to do a huge amount of change. But they have deliberately chosen to not consider these types of issues to date because they were, as a business, they were happy to carry the risk of this type of thing. And there's a balance between ignorance and being happy with the risk, because look at, like, even outside of COVID, they were blowing up as a company. So this was like, it was in their best interest. If they had done all of this beautifully from the start, would they be who they are today? No, they'd just be another conferencing vendor. So, you know, they got to deal with the flack of it, but realistically, they've got a client installed on everyone's computer. Everyone's already using it. It's like, oh, this happens. They go, hey, it's easy. Just turn on a password. It doesn't happen again. So obviously,
not only that, they're a verb.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know,
like Googling.
Yeah. Once you're a verb.
You'd like to be a verb, wouldn't you, with Notive, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've got other things in place. I don't think you have to be a verb. I don't think you should have to talk to it. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to get into it, like VR is where it ends up.
Oh, he said he's dialed in. I'm just going to send him the link. He said he's dialed in and it dropped off. I'll just resend it.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's the main thing is like, cool, how do you channel their energy? And that's exactly what we did at Bug Crowd. And that's exactly the way I think to approach this sort of thing. And I could speak to that. But then the other side of it is, how do you change the incentives for someone being a shithead? Like, what does someone really get from Zoom bombing? Like, oh, they get to show genitalia to a kid's class, like, realistic, you know, so they make the waiting room and it's like, cool, it kind of goes away. The sad piece with waiting rooms, it just makes a real bad user experience for everyone. And like a story that I would, you know, one thing that I would share, particularly from Noti's perspective, is we work with phones. And so one of the things we let people do is register their phone number. So then we know when they call things, we know who they are and so forth. But it was being abused because like there's a certain geography that was doing it in the Middle East. I don't think it's important to reference that in particular, but there was a, you know, like an anarchist type group that was leveraging something that we were doing to use it in an illegitimate way. So the idea of like trying to channel that energy, like there wasn't going to be an option for that. So we just made the choice that, okay, how do we de-incentivize it? So we made it a paid feature and it just went away. So it's just really understanding like, cool, like what is the energy that's coming and what's their motivation, and going, cool, can we channel that in a way? Because some of these things, like if someone can do this to your business, like the Bug Crowd model is actually really good, like, and I'm biased, but like it actually is really good and effective. But then you also got to understand, like, okay, from a motivation perspective, if it's like an anarchist type group that are like leveraging something you do to do something that's inappropriate, that using a system the way it wasn't designed, like there's a lot of young kids that'll do that just to be silly. But if you can say, look, be cool, like we can, you know, I'm glad that this was pointed out, like let's work together in a way. And there's companies like Bug Crowd that can help facilitate that. You can also just go it yourself. Not everyone wants to be buying and distributing Bitcoin across the globe though. So it's a little hard to account for from a tax perspective. So there's organizations like ours to manage that. But the other side of it is just like looking at that motivation and deciding like, okay, how do we remove the impact of it? Like, how do we, you know, what do we need to shift? And often, unless they're like acting badly, deliberately, like super deliberate, not just because it's a bunch of kids playing around or even adults playing around, I think it can be really effective. And it's just choosing the way that you want to react to this type of thing.
Yeah.
And generally, most of the time, they're not that bad. Like most of these like really talented bad people, like they don't care about like some business in Brisbane.
That's true. So what we want to do today,
Yeah.
hopefully Lani's on his way, is so Lani's should be able to set the broader context in terms of the scene, which we talked a little bit about with Patrick Scholar-Gray last week, in terms of what's going on in the world, the bigger picture in terms of cyber and why it's so important. And then he'll do the context. So Chris, then it's important for you in terms of to deliver the hacker kind of, what's the motivation behind this? How big is it? Some of those stories from Bug Crowd in terms of why Bug Crowd adds value. And then, like you said, what is it as a business owner? What did you have to do to protect yourself? And what kind of hacks were the most obvious ones potentially? And how did that impact on what you had to do day to day from a business owner's perspective? Because that's for our audience, they're going to be the most critical things that they'll want to know. And then Ross can chime in with here's the list from your perspective, Ross, of the most practical things that a small business person needs to deal with if they're going to make sure that they're secure enough to be able to trade and be manage their risk, as we've talked about before. So just to run through the format quickly, and we can recap if Lani manages to get in. We've got, we do a brief intro, and then we have 7 minutes for each of our panelists. Now that's not a lot of time. So it's really critical to do a little bit of thinking in advance as to the key messages you want to get across. And in most cases, telling 1 or 2 stories to contextualize the message is a good thing too. We have a system where we have, if you're running slightly over time, we can send you a chat message and say, hey, you've got sort of this many minutes left. And then if you really keep going, we'll throw the question slide up behind you. And I'll show you what that looks like in a sec, which was basically the cue to say, like the Oscars, when they play the music, you've spoken for long enough now. We don't have a big book, but that's as good as we get. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No gong. Worst case scenario, we have talked about muting people deliberately before, but we haven't had to do that yet. 7 minutes. 7 minutes is to give you the context, and if you speak for 10, then that's kind of okay. The point of that little short period of time is not so much about you being the font of all wisdom, because I know that you could probably do an hour keynote without any trouble. It's actually about giving people enough of experience with you to say, yes, I want to go to a breakout session and spend some time chatting with Ross or chatting with Chris and getting a sense of how that looks.
Is that what you do afterwards?
Yeah, so we do the 3 panelists. We do some questions in between before we split. We ask everyone to pick out which of our 3 panelists at the beginning they'd like to spend time with, and then we break them into breakout rooms, which is why we run it as a Zoom meeting, not just a webinar. So you're in a breakout room with a moderator. So Tara, myself, and Adam are our 3 moderators, and the moderator's job is to manage the room. You just have to be there and be the mouthpiece. So we're in the breakout room for 15, 20 minutes. Then we come back, we recap what happens in the rooms, get some feedback about what everyone talked about, share a few key takeaways. And then we finish at 1:15, and then we've got 15 minutes or so of networking where people kind of gather and have a bit of a chat. So that's pretty much the format in terms of how it works.
That sounds like a good format.
Yeah, it's been working really well. We find there's a lot of engagement. So we're getting between 20 and 30 people coming on each week. Generally the mix is different, but in most cases we're getting people, small business owners from all over Australia. So we've had people from Karratha and Port Hedland and Mount Isa and Curry, which I can't say, Sunshine Coast, all over the place. And Adam's from New Zealand, so we've got a little bit of international flavour. And so and we record the sessions, and we have the sessions available for everyone to download afterwards. So we have a community for small businesses called Groei.us. And the idea is that they can watch your video session again if they're interested. And then if you've got any potential tools or links or things that you'd like to be able to share in terms of best practice, we can post that into the community so people can come on board and download it and get connected with you and all that kind of stuff if you'd like to join and be part of that conversation.
Yeah, great.
So we've got 100 in the community at the moment. And that's growing every week. We did a deal with Brisbane City Council last week. We've got another one for them next week. So we're looking at trying to build momentum around sort of providing this good content. And then part of what we do is then sell small business programs in terms of, we've got a strategic program and a recovery program that we're building at the moment. So over time, we will sell them to our community cohort.
Have you got any good techniques that you guys use for because someone's going to say, oh, you know, I've got Google, is that okay? You know, something that requires a much bigger answer than is, you know, reasonable on the forum. Is, you know, I imagine it's fine for us to say, look, you know, that requires a lot bigger response than what's reasonable there. Feel free to get in touch with us afterwards. And I imagine that they can do that through you guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, well, direct to you. So what we do, and I'll show you quickly now, if it's okay, I'll just show you how our slides work. So because we're doing it as a breakout room, excuse me, a breakout room rather than a webinar, when we have the speaker speaking, we have the slide deck running in the background. So this is our slide deck for tomorrow's session. We're doing it on customers focus, centricity.
Amanda, I'm just looking at Suzanne's slides there, just her 3 slide decks. Is that what you mean to be showing?
Yes, so I'm getting to that.
Right.
So this is the speaker has their proposed summary slides. So that's just when we go to introduce. So there's the photo, contact details, so people can contact you direct, and that's on while you're talking. And then Suzanne's also given us, in this case, what we're saying is 2 slides maximum. She's just given us 3 to make it look a bit more interesting. So these are her key points for her delivery session. So if you want to, you can have a second slide that summarizes your content. If you don't, that's fine. You just end up with a main summary slide like that one. So she's done that herself. This is one that Jane, one of the other speakers, has done. So we can pull something together for you if you just want to send us a photo and some contact details. That's fine too. You don't have to make it.
Sorry, do you mind showing the other slides? Can you, like,
yeah, sure.
they're tiny. Yeah, can you just click on one and...
So this is just the run sheet for the day. So we do a little bit of background, explain how Zoom works for those.
No, you're still showing those slides. So you must have clicked on the wrong thing for your share.
Oh, sorry. Can you see
So
that?
I was just curious to see those other 2 slides. Like,
no, we can only see Suzanne Oxford slides and with the slide deck down the side.
I was just, so
Really
we need
big.
to provide you something that looks like this?
Not necessarily, because Suzanne is a graphic designer, so she did this herself. I can pull together something just with a photo of you and your contact details if that's all you need. She's done a more glamorous version of it.
Amanda, can you just click on slide 2 for Suzanne's, just so that Chris can have a look at it? Just on the left?
Is that showing?
No.
No.
Okay, let me just see if I can play, because for some reason...
Yeah, I was going to say, we're in PowerPoint there. We're not on the slide.
There you go. We're now in the forum slides.
Okay.
It was showing us just the 3 of Suzanne's.
Right. Okay. So this is the slide deck for the forum. So we go through some Zoom stuff. We talk a little bit about Groei. We do a group chat, and then we talk about the topic. We introduce the speakers.
This is tomorrow's.
This is tomorrow's
Yeah,
deck.
okay.
We talk about the breakout rooms and how that's going to work. We ask people to choose a breakout space depending on the speaker. And then we have the speaker slide. So while you're speaking, if we were in the presentation right now, because the format shows you in a little box on the right-hand side, you don't come up full screen as speaker view because of the way because we're sharing slides. So we have a background slide, if you like, that just has your contact details and a photo. If you've got some content slide that you want to show while you're talking, we can move to a second slide. And then basically there's the question slide that says, oh, time's up if you keep going. So it's really just you and a second lot of information if you'd like to have a summary of your key points.
It's fantastic that you put that slide up, because that's the 3rd time I've had Susan's name mentioned to me in 2 days.
She's amazing. You should jump on and listen to her tomorrow.
Yeah.
She's very good. In fact, tomorrow she's sharing and she's given us the tool. You can download your own questionnaire to do your own customer surveys. So she's giving everyone a customer insights questions process tomorrow.
And just in addition to that, so to come back to that question you asked, Ross, we have as Amanda said, we've got the community. So what we do is we set up a panelist page or a profile in that community. So we'll put a photo of you, your bio, your contact details, and any tools you'd like to share. We put that in there so that anybody in the community and or people that have attended can access that if they like afterwards. So if you want to send us anything as an additional tool, or anything else specifically, we load that in after the event.
Yeah. So this is the promo tomorrow for next week. So we're talking about cyber safety. There's your lovely faces. We just stole some stuff out of your LinkedIn bios. I'm happy to update that if you like. And this is the as Tara was saying, the Groei.us page. So this is our community platform that we run where we have our members, and you can see there's a variety of posts up there with content that gets delivered from each of the forums. So that's the back end.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Lani's not having technical issues, I hope, is he?
No, he sent me an email to say, that's funny actually, he sent me an email to say he jumped in and no one was there, so he jumped out. And I've said, well, we're here. So by email, and he hasn't come back. So obviously he might have had something to rush off to, so we'll talk to him. So.
Yeah. So just quickly before we wrap up, one of the things we have been doing, which is working pretty well, is doing a quick video of our speakers in terms of providing some social media content to promote the event. This is your small amount of advance notice, which means that if you'd like to give us a bit of an understanding of what you think you might talk about, we can slice that into something so we can put it onto LinkedIn and
Do you want a video of what we might talk about?
Yeah, so I'm recording now, but that's okay. We've just been recording because Chris said some cool stuff before. So the idea is, yes, just a quick overview. So if I'm a business owner, why would I need to come and hear you speak for the 7 minutes or so? What sort of, just a few sentences on what you might cover. But, you know, we can cut and edit it, so you don't have to feel like you're being...
Sounds good. Chris, do you want to go?
Chris.
I'm not good on the spot. So did you get anything from what I said earlier?
Yeah. You were talking about hackers and how to use them for good, not evil.
But it might not be something that the community might go, oh yeah, I'm going to go. I mean, just from curiosity, they might. But I would.
Okay.
I would. I guess the key thing that we're, you know, if we're talking about it from a business owner's perspective, if you put your business owner's hat on and said, you know, what's something you've learned as a business owner about cybersecurity that you found that has been the most significant impact for you?
Look, I'm happy to give you my quick 2 cents worth. The most important thing from my point of view is getting business owners to understand that it's not a technical problem that they're dealing with. We don't want them thinking in terms of this is technical and I've got to understand all the technical aspects of what could happen in a hack or what hacks could happen. We want people to understand that it's just a business risk. It's just another business risk, and it needs to be addressed as a business risk, not as a technical problem that they've got to throw, this, that, or the other technology at. They need to understand as a business owner that it's just another risk. There's some very good methods available for them to just work through that risk and deal with the risk and to make the business more resilient. And business resilience is what we're aiming at. You can't be 100% secure. It can't be done. The Bug Crowd guys will assure us of that. But you can certainly be a lot more resilient than what you may be at the moment. So that's where we'd really like the business owners to be.
I think, Ross, we talked about the idea of having some key things that are really easy to implement that business owners should do. And so we're going to talk more about those when we get together. So Chris, what do you think in terms of your experiences with Bug Crowd and as running a business that you think, if there was one thing that you had to say, every business owner should do this one thing, is there something you'd share?
Let me think about that. I probably would prefer to not have Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and, I'd probably have another shirt on and use a different camera and things.
If you want to do that and send us something, you're welcome to do it.
Yeah, I can do that. I can absolutely do that. Just obviously, like, we're just being really deliberate about presentation and so forth.
Yeah.
Just trying to think. I don't like telling people what to do. I like asking them what they're worried about. And so, like, realistically, sort of like Ross has said it pretty well about like understanding your risk. Like, if I was to speak about something in particular, I'd be, like, in any business, your biggest risk is going to be the people themselves, like your team. Whether they willingly or unwillingly know that they are a huge target. All of these technical problems, all these technical ways that hackers can attack you, most likely, if you look at all the big hacks that have ever happened, it's where they attack people, because we can't be expected to know everything. We can't keep up with everything. And there's probably a few really simple things that they can ensure their people are doing to make sure that they're kept as safe as possible. And being kind
mate, I'm interested in, there's been a few people commenting on about that around the use of Facebook at work and social media at work. And I think that's an really interesting angle. I think that we're getting a lot of these small businesses saying, how much should I allow my staff to do that? And, you know, how does that affect or create a greater risk within the business?
Well, there's so many different things. There's like connecting your phone to your work, your personal phone to your work network. Am I opening my work email on my personal computer? Am I like, how do people use passwords? I have family, I mean, not so much now because I've corrected it, but there's some like slightly technical things, like, so things people aren't familiar with, but how do you manage passwords? There's so many things we have to log into these days. If there was one thing I would suggest that people do, it's like implement a password manager and teach people about what two-factor authentication is, which means that when you sign in, it'll ask you for your password.
Steal all my thunder, are you, Chris?
Well, no, but like the people are the risk. The people are the risk, and that's not because they are inadequate. It's because we are human. We're not software. We're not machines. Like, we have to remember. We're dealing with so much different software. So much is coming at us. So I mean, I guess we should converse, Ross, just to make sure we don't overlap. But I mean, I probably wouldn't.
I don't think there's a problem if we do, personally.
No, there isn't. And because even if you do reinforce the same message, then that's actually the point, is people, all three of you say, you should all do this, then it becomes like, oh, well clearly I should be doing that.
And we get your question all the time is, what's the one thing? You know, if we're only getting, and every tech chair at the end of the tech session says, what's the one thing? And you know, like, I hate the question because there's not just one thing, you know. So I always steal a bit and say, there's two things. The first one is, you've got to take ownership. You know, it's your business. It's a business risk. You've got to take ownership. You've got to do something about it. If you're only ever going to do one thing, then passwords is where to, you know, if you're only going to throw one thing, let's start there. You know, there's heaps more that you should be doing, but if you're only going to do the one, let's fix your passwords. And I'm 100% with Chris. Password managers, multi-factor authentication. What is a good password? You know, reuse of passwords, never. You know, those things. So they'll be. I've got a handout that I give the tech guys. I'll make it available through you guys as well. I might even be good and take tech off it and put Groei on there for you.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Thank you. We'd appreciate that. You don't have to put anything on it. Just put Ross and your brand. That's fine. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I guess that gives you a sense. Chris, don't worry about catching up with Ross afterwards. That's one of the reasons we wanted to introduce you, so you had a sense of each other.
That would be great. I think that would actually be best.
Happy for you to do that. And obviously you were already working together inadvertently anyway. So
it's funny.
Yeah, small world.
It's getting smaller all the time. No, look, that all sounds great to me. I love the format. Happy as a lark. If Chris steal all the thunder, that would actually be ideal. Good as gold.
Cool. All right. Well, that means if you're last, then you can either choose to reinforce Chris's commentary or add some extra stuff. So
look, I'll go in with what I was, sort of thinking anyway. It's just as I say, I don't like giving technical solutions as what you should do, but there are a couple of basic ones that are kind of technical, like passwords and things like that. That we have to. If you're back to are you only going to do one thing? Okay.
We can have more than one thing. Tara, did you want to add anything else?
No, I think that's it. Just a reassurance that our panelists do overlap, and that's to be expected because it's a common theme, and that's never really been an issue. It's, as Amanda says, they'll just pick the person that they think they can kind of connect with and make sense of better when they choose the breakout rooms. Obviously, they haven't heard you speak, so they've read your bios and they select the breakout room before you speak.
I get the old Groei audience.
Yeah. Well, what we have had where you get it's like the picking of the cricket team and someone doesn't get picked. So what we've decided is we get them to pick at the start, and then if there's one room that's heavily weighted, they just basically get moved out. So they don't get guaranteed to have the speaker that they want. So that we can have even breakout rooms. So.
And worst case scenario, if for some reason we don't end up with piles of people, we do put 2 speakers in one room and have a second room as well. So, but we are finding at least 10 people in a room at the moment. So we'll just have to see how we go. So we would appreciate, we appreciate if you can share it, obviously, through social media. Once we get the videos up and running, we can, happy to present them and send them out. And at the end of it all, we'll send you your video from your speaking gig and you can use that however you like. So all a good opportunity for you to build content.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us on the panel. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
No problems at all. And I'll get my lighting better for next week. It's still a bit dark in here, isn't it?
Yeah, you're probably better with a bit more light. And Chris, feel free to do another little quick record if you want to, so you look a bit more notive related.
Yeah. I put the shirt on and everything.
No. The t-shirt's the new business suit. Seriously, I wouldn't wear that shirt at all.
No, but it's a native logo.
The special Zoom shirt.
Yeah.
I've gone to all the trouble of my Zoom shirt. I have a Zoom shirt here all the time.
You just are on the front, I believe, not the back.
He's wearing footy shorts. That's
True indeed. And
well, it works.
And thongs.
And slippers, yeah.
The Uxbridge is the new business attire. Anyway. Well, thank you, guys.
Call it mullet dressing.
Yeah.
So we will be online about 11:30 next Friday. If you wouldn't mind just checking in, we can give you feedback on your sound and your lighting and that kind of stuff. And then if you need to go away and do other stuff until we kick off at 12, then that's great. Generally, we let people in at about between 10 and 5 to 12 because if they're sitting in the waiting room, we know that experience is not so fabulous. And so then we just play a bit of music until we get the majority on board.
Is it Rick Astley?
Well, she's got some questionable music, so I
will find Rick Astley just for you.
Adam sings actually, so that always makes it quite delightful. He might be able to riff a poem next time. He writes poems often about the forum, so we might need to get him to challenge him to riff a poem at the start, as he's going.
I use Uber Conference for all of my investor meetings. Just we work with conferencing software, so I deliberately use all of them. And Uber Conference is the one I use for investors. And I always tell them to arrive 5 minutes early. And the hold music is Rick Astley.
So there is hold music in the waiting room, is it?
No. On Uber Conference there is. I don't know.
It mustn't have had a lot of royalties attached to it still.
Yeah. I just think it's such a magic song. Yeah.
That's great. So Chris, just out of then your opinion of the best conferencing software, because Tara wants to know the answer to this question, I'm sure. What do you think?
It's called Jitsi.
Jitsi. How do you spell that?
JITSI, and that's free.
I think I've come across that one.
Completely free. You can run it yourself, which means it's something I recommend to all educational facilities. So you can actually, you need to get someone to help you. You can use their hosted version of it completely free. It can work from your phone. It can work. There's nothing to install. You can still just use it from the browser, but you can install an app that's slightly nice, cleaner experience. But it's awesome. It's so good.
And it's as stable as Zoom?
It's so much better than Zoom.
Oh, that's good. I like that. And you can do breakout rooms and go in, move in and out.
I wouldn't. It's not like that. It's not a webinar-ish type software.
I might chuck a few caveats on that. Chris is obviously very technical and understands how to run it well. You need a little bit of background knowledge to run it well. It's a different sort of application.
Yeah,
but it is very good.
Yeah, it's more if someone says we want. Yeah. I
looked at Blue Jeans and a couple of others. Zoom's picked up. I've been using Zoom for many, many years, and it's picked up its game in terms of usability, but it's still clunky.
I think Google Meet. So I'll tell you what's interesting. We've tested everything. Blue Jeans has the best sound. Zoom is pretty average, I think, across all fronts from a sound and video, and they're struggling for bandwidth and things like that. So that's troublesome. Google Meet has the worst sound, but the best, most responsive user experience, because if anyone knows how to scale server applications, it's Google. So, you know, it always works. Anything that works with it, integration wise, it's always good. They just don't have like the super polished like Zoom rooms. So Zoom is good if you use Zoom rooms and you've got all the fancy, as they call it, SIP. There's this like, you know, the big double screen and the nice camera, the microphones built into the table. Like anything that like is that well set up is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of this stuff is actually simple. Like, you know, Zoom's actually becoming worse with the waiting room and the passwords and
yeah.
like we work with a lot of people.
I'm an educator, so I lecture, you know, through Blackboard and Canvas and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and we've been using Zoom for a long time. So we, you know, breakout rooms is imperative in terms of student engagement. So unfortunately, most of the conferencing tools don't do that effectively or allow co-hosts to be moving in and out of rooms.
Yeah.
So,
have you found Big Marker, Chris?
Big Marker?
Yeah, there's one called Big Marker that's just
I know that.
It's a webinar though. It's not so much.
Yeah. I don't really touch the webinar stuff. We're actually going to be starting webinars for our training. So rather than having like one-on-one demo FAQ sessions, we're actually just going to run like 1 hour session a week. So the idea is we could start to build community across users. So putting together a bit of a like, you know, a Slack group for native users. So there's, you know, it's in the thousands now. So it's this idea that they can sort of, you know, teach the teacher, like let them help themselves type element. So then when you get new people coming in, instead of them having to cover 24/7 support, they can essentially sort of do it themselves. Big Marker is a popular one in the webinar, particularly for the like, you know, one-to-many space where there's not a lot of QA. I think they also let you do pre-recorded webinars, and then you can just slot in for the Q&A at the end, which is kind of cool. Like you can pretend like it's live, and then you just make sure you wear the same shirt.
That's amazing. And so community-wise, are you building your own community platform, or are you going to use somebody else's?
No, it'll just be Slack.
Just
Slack. Like it's until you need more things, then don't. It's just in true agile style. Like make it work, make it good, make it fast.
Yeah. Slack covers a lot of bases.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's free.
Free is good.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, ball boys.
Thanks for allowing us to tick your brains, Chris. That's great. Thanks for engaging today, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you all.
Bye.
Bye.